Welcome. My name is Krithika Randhawa. I'm a Senior Lecturer of Innovation, Strategy and Entrepreneurship at the UTS Business School, University of Technology, Sydney, Australia. Today I'll introduce our recent research published in the California Management Review, in which we focus on the role of cognitive artifacts in bringing diverse stakeholders together to enable a business to evolve from a value chain to an open innovation ecosystem. Open innovation means working with external stakeholders to create and capture value through innovation that is co-created. But the external ties with stakeholders in open innovation can constrain a business's ability to adapt its innovation strategy, which we often see when a business tries to shift from a linear value chain to an innovation ecosystem. In this process, a multitude of different stakeholders come together, but they may not share the same interests or cognitive understanding of how value should be created and captured. So how can businesses manage the value-creating relationships among organizations in an open innovation setting, and what tools can they use to overcome cognitive misalignment between stakeholders and conceive and implement the complex transition to an ecosystem model? Our research team decided to look into this, and in particular the role of cognitive artifacts, which are tangible visual representations that synthesize how to create and capture value. We wanted to know if these artifacts could be used to reframe how different stakeholders think about value creation and capture, and consequently whether they could be used to support collaboration across an innovation ecosystem. We chose a case study in a challenging, highly regulated setting, the healthcare system, which is made of a complex web of stakeholders. Our case study firm was a US-based Fortune 500 company offering mainly implantable orthopedic devices. The firm relied on a traditional value chain to supply mass-produced implants, but was hoping to move to a 3D printed patient-specific implants and ended up shifting to an innovation ecosystem. Our research team observed and supported this process from the start. For this study, we conducted research across 3 continents over 21 months, interviewed 75 internal and external stakeholders, ran 2 design thinking workshops, held several formal project meetings and informal conversations. Based on what we observed, we were able to develop a 5-step process framework for the cognitive shift that needs to occur when an incumbent business transitions from a traditional value chain to a technology-centric open innovation model, and ultimately to a stakeholder-centric ecosystem model. Along the way, we also gained a better understanding of the role of cognitive artifacts in this process. We call the first step stakeholder scanning. In our case study, the firm initially presented a technology roadmap, which we recognized as a cognitive artifact to its research partners. The technology roadmap served as an experimental artifact as it broke down the technological opportunity into tangible components to efficiently gather information about critical areas. But value creation, according to the roadmap, was largely inward-looking and technology-focused. To identify and engage a broader stakeholder base in the assessment of the proposed value creation, a stakeholder scanning process was conducted. Step 2, which is the internal sense-making process, showed the varied and siloed conceptions of value creation across the different stakeholders from step 1, as well as the cognitive barriers and their reluctance to change. We also realized that the patient perspective was largely overlooked, which led to the development of a patient-centered stakeholder journey map, which served as a key experimental artifact going forward. Yet, a stakeholder workshop was run during which diverse participants could interact with the artifact and collaboratively develop a desired journey map. This led to step 3, the collective sense-making stage, in which the patient and stakeholder journey map served as experimental, but also as transformative artifact. It was designed such that it not only aided straightforward communication and validation of value creation options, but also enabled reflective conversations among interdisciplinary stakeholders. This process helped participants collectively make sense of the broader stakeholder ecosystem surrounding the patient journey and ascertain how just-in-time manufacturing of implants can address patient and stakeholder pain points, leading to the co-development of the ideal model. Step 3 thus led to a shared cognitive map as the foundation for a technology-centric, co-designed business model. This collective sense-making led to an unexpected fourth step, in which the firm's managers saw the potential for larger value creation across the whole ecosystem, and not just via technological aspects. This called for revising the cognitive map, which ultimately led to the idea of a stakeholder-centric ecosystem model. For our case study firm, this meant transitioning radically from mass-produced orthopedics to customized 3D printed orthopedics to ultimately an R&D hub that would leverage 3D printing, robotics, and other digital technologies to collaboratively develop treatment solutions for complex healthcare problems. Finally, the use of transformative maps as artifacts enabled sense-giving. This can be understood as an act of articulating and shaping collective interpretation for the transition to the ecosystem model. In our case, the firm used this both internally among its business units and externally across the wider stakeholder network. The transformative maps also helped with issue selling to champion the R&D hub to senior leadership and obtain wide-ranging buy-in across an even broader stakeholder base, including key policymakers. Through this 5-step process, our research has shown not only how cognitive artifacts such as technology roadmaps or stakeholder journey maps can serve as tools to overcome cognitive constraints, but also how managers can address cognitive issues in practice when developing a transformative open innovation strategy in a setting with diverse stakeholder groups. More critically, the flexible and iterative use of experimental and transformative artifacts, and in particular the hybrid use of both artifacts, can help negotiate a cognitive shift that would transform a value chain to a collaborative innovation ecosystem. Experimental artifacts can help test an intended strategy, allowing managers to gather concrete information from stakeholders. Then, hybrid and transformative artifacts can be used to deploy increasingly radical deviations from that strategy. This requires managers to design mutable artifacts that can facilitate creative interactions and collective sense-making among stakeholders at key junctures of the transformation process. And together, these support the cognitive reframing needed to go beyond a local maximum to conceive and implement a more radical and higher potential transformation. If you're interested in learning more, please read our paper, Evolving a Value Chain to an Open Innovation Ecosystem, Cognitive Engagement of Stakeholders in Customizing Medical Implants in the California Management Review.